what should people mainly trademark? Like, so it's a bunch of entrepreneurs who listen to this primarily. So what
Yeah.
should they think about trademarking besides their company name? And should they even trademark their company name? Because some companies aren't, let's say, branded that strong, in my opinion. Welcome to the Winning Move podcast. We have another amazing guest on today, Angela, and I hope I don't carry your last name, Langlots.
Perfect.
Nice. And she is an attorney of a very, very particular way, copyright attorney that will help
Trademark and
you
copyright.
trademark and copyright.
Mhm.
That'll help you protect yourself. And I believe she sicks on other people as well.
How are you doing? I'm glad to be here. Thank you for that
I'm doing great. Of course. I'm super excited to talk to you because I've never really spoken to anybody like this. I'd first like to start off. Where'd you go to college? Were you always going to be an attorney? All that good stuff.
Yeah, I studied law at Lewis and Clark in Portland, Oregon. And I originally started out doing estate planning. And estate planning is okay, but it's one of those things where you really have to meet in person with people.
Yeah.
And I kind of like not going into the office. So I switched my practice to trademark and copyright law in 2006. So I have been practicing trademark and copyright law since then.
So what made you switch to trademark? Like out of all the things you could switch to?
I think it was a way that I could help small business owners. And I really liked that aspect of it. I get excited when people start new businesses. So that was fun. And also, people don't really care. It's not like we're not talking about, death and disability. So people don't really need to sit across the table from you. In fact, most business owners would rather not come into my office because they just, it's just like you have to drive and park and traffic and all of that. So it's an easy practice for me to do from home, which is what I like. So I do have an office where I meet with clients, but the majority of my clients don't really want to see me. I do a lot of video meetings. So
when did you leave Tahoe?
I
think
left
that is
there
so cool.
in 2012. Yeah, we were talking about skiing. It's a great place to live if you like to ski. So.
Did you get bored like during the summertime?
So I'm really, really light. I'm a redhead. So for me, the sun represents a lot of health issues because I burn so very easily. And there's only so much sunscreen you can wear. So if you're not like an outdoorsy person, it's really hard to take full advantage of living in Tahoe. I did enjoy it. It's a little bit too remote for me. So I moved to Dallas because I just find cities a lot more invigorating. I can always go back and visit Tahoe to ski or what have you. It's a plane ride,
Did you make any, like, let's say, good business connections while you lived in Tahoe? Because I know a ton of people live up there.
Yeah, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that live out there because when you work virtually, and that's increasingly common these days, when you work virtually, you can really live wherever you want, which is nice. It's the great advantage to being able to work virtually. So yeah, a lot of people live in places like Tahoe where there's not necessarily like a big business community in terms of
brick and mortar.
Brick and mortar, but now everybody is virtual. So, we can all have meetings on video calls like we're doing now, or, go to masterminds where we meet with people. So there's a lot of different ways to build community these days. That's, very acceptable and encouraged. We're all on Facebook. I know everybody laughs at Facebook, but that's where entrepreneurs are hanging out. We're hanging out on Facebook. So it's really easy to connect with people. There are a lot of Facebook groups that entrepreneurs use for networking and business support, those sorts of things. So it's really great, really flexible.
And we were talking in my mastermind the other day. I was like, you guys are going to be on Facebook because really the only people with money are on Facebook. Like all the millennials who are on TikTok necessarily, like you can't build a community on TikTok the same way. You can have the same reach, but I'd say on Facebook, like I can write a post and I can get 200 comments and then we can sell a bunch of different stuff, build relationships off of that. of
Yeah.
people who are actually in business. They're a lot more seasoned and everything like that.
Yeah. And I love the TikTok concept, but you know that it's spyware, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, so I don't have it on my phone anymore because they have a keylogger. Like they actually say in their terms of service, which people should really read it. It's shocking. In the terms of service, it says, yeah, we may log your keystrokes. So, I mean, they're just sucking up all this information about you, including your keystrokes. So if you're entering any passwords, like I use a password keeper, so I never enter passwords for anything. It's my thumbprint. Who knows? They may be sucking that up too. But when I heard about that for the terms of service, I was like, yeah, I don't think this sounds like a very good idea. I really don't want the Chinese government, sucking up my my passwords if I ever have to forget and tap one in. So I took it off of my phone. So now whenever I upload anything to TikTok, I do it on the web interface. So, but yeah, you got to be careful to read those terms of service agreements because some of them are a little bit stinky, so yeah,
Do
I
you
took it off
think
my
that
phone.
America's going to ban it? I'm waiting for it.
I have no idea. I'm not in favor of banning things. I'm in favor of disclosure, right? So I like freedom to choose. And if some people want to choose to be hacked, I guess that's on them, but I'm not in favor of banning things. And I don't think that it probably will be banned, but I do think that people should be aware of, I think we should require plain language disclosures
Yeah.
so that people know what sort of information, is being sucked up. Although if we did that, people still wouldn't read the terms of service. They never read the terms of service anyway. So, anyway, but yeah, it was pretty shocking what they're getting from, the people who use the app. So I just decided to take it off my phone. It's fine.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's probably better that it's off of my phone because TikTok is addictive, as you know. Like
Bro.
it plays the video and then it goes on to the next, right? And so by the time you get to the next, you're not like, oh, I guess I could play another one. No, it just automatically loads the next one. And it's really hard to stop watching it because people are putting out really entertaining content on TikTok.
Yeah.
I really like TikTok, but I don't want to have it on my phone.
Yeah. I'd rather be on TikTok than Facebook or Instagram because it's so entertaining.
It's super entertaining, but that's a double-edged sword. It's super entertaining, but the other part is that
it's a bottomless pit.
It is. It's hard to stop watching it. So I'm actually kind of glad it's not on my phone anymore. So crazy.
So how did you get involved? Were you always in like the real estate education guru space? What was like your first series of clients? Like what did they look like?
Okay, my first clients were actually the firearms industry. At one point, I was filing more than half of all of the trademarks that got filed in that industry. And I divorced my husband. And so I gave him the law practice. And then I, sort of pivoted because I was already in the online space anyway. So I pivoted and started serving online entrepreneurs. And that's been really great. I've really enjoyed that. I enjoy seeing what people are doing. It's just it's very satisfying to me to educate and help online entrepreneurs. I don't know if you have seen my YouTube channel. I have like over 500 videos there, and it's just fun to put out the educational content that I put out because I get calls every week, multiple phone calls. Hey, I saw your video on whatever.
Yeah.
So I decided to call you. So I guess people like what I'm doing because it's working from a marketing standpoint.
Oh, that is okay. So I have a couple questions when it comes to copyright.
Yeah.
So we own a company called Call Magicians. That is like a cold calling company with virtual assistants.
Okay.
Another company came out with a company called Call Magic Leads. And I was pretty much like, fuck you. I want to send them like a cease and desist letter.
Okay, wait. Theirs is Call Magic Leads, and what's yours?
Ours is Call Magicians.
Call Magicians. Okay. Yeah.
Like no grounds.
So that's not really a copyright issue. That's a trademark issue. So copyright is about creative stuff that you put out. So poems, software code, online courses, things like that. That's covered by copyright. Trademark is about your brand identity. So that's really that is really a brand identity issue. So before I could answer something like that, I would have to go into the trademark database and see what else is out there. So what we really care about is it confusingly similar enough such that a consumer, whatever space that consumer is in, would a consumer be confused and think that your stuff and their stuff came from the same company? If the answer is yes, then it's trademark infringement. If the answer is no, it's not trademark infringement. So like if people were calling you thinking that you were them, that would be evidence of consumer confusion. But I mean, absent something like that, I mean, you can write them a cease and desist letter, but, sometimes this whole issue of what's confusingly similar can be hard to put your finger on, right? Because there's a lot of factors that go into that, but there's no bright line test because every mark is different, right? So there's no bright line test where we say, oh, if it does this, then it's trademark infringement. And if it doesn't do that, then it's not trademark infringement. It's kind of a soup, right? I call it the soup. There's a lot of factors involved, including, are there other people using things that are similar such that the consumers are used to discerning very carefully who is who, right? Like we have that all the time in the wine and beer and liquor space. There are lots of liquors that use trademarks that are pretty similar, but consumers are used to that in that space. And so they're very careful to select the brand that they want because they know exactly what they want. They know what it looks like. It may also have a distinctive label that distinguishes it from other people's, goods and services. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. And, people ask me things like this all the time. Well, is it infringing? And my answer is, not surprisingly, it depends, right? Like, it's not one of those things that I can just answer. It's not close enough where I would say, oh yeah, like if it's exactly the same, well, shoot, that's easy, right? It's exactly the same. Of course it infringes. We should send them a cease and desist letter. But if it's not exactly the same, we have to kind of drill down on it a little bit more and say, okay, what else? What are the factors here that we really need to pay attention to?
Okay. Well, that makes me feel better because we have actually had calls from people thinking that we are them.
Okay. So, well, that's a factor. Are consumers actually being confused? Because likelihood of confusion is one of the things that we look at, and it's a very strong piece of evidence. So if people are calling you and thinking you're them or vice versa, then that would weigh heavily in favor of finding that their mark is confusingly similar. You have to be careful of these things too, because what if they started using it first, but you didn't know it? You thought you used it first, but you really didn't. Right. They were using it first.
And then you just blow it all up.
Yeah. And then you stumbled in, right? So you have to be careful of these sorts of things. Some people go off half-cocked and start writing nasty letters, or their attorneys start writing nasty letters only to find out, oh, wait a minute, actually, we were using it first. So why don't you cease and desist? So you got to be careful of those things.
Okay. What has been, I want to hear like top 3 craziest stories of the copyright and it's like blatantness, because it's insane how much of it goes around.
Oh God, yeah. Okay, well, here's one. I have some clients. This one client that I'm thinking in particular, he's a really well-known copywriter, right? In other words, he writes advertising copy. He calls me up and he says, Angela, you're never going to believe what this naughty infringer, that's what I call them, naughty infringers. He didn't use that. I'm using that. I should trademark naughty infringer. Anyway, you're never going to believe what this guy did. And I said, what? And he said, I sent out an email to my list. 10 minutes later, this guy swipes my entire email and sends it out to his list. And somebody who's on both lists emailed me and said that this guy, and showed me what this guy had sent. And it's like, he changed 3 words. He basically sent out my entire email today. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Nope. He sent both to me. And I was like, wow, this is like so audacious and so stupid. So of course he had me write him a letter, and I never heard back from the guy, but he stopped. Like, he never copied anything of my clients again. And my client put the letter, a copy of the letter on his website and said, basically, if you copy my stuff, you're going to get a letter like this from my attorney. And if you do it again, I will sue you. So now I refer to that letter as the heads on pikes letter, right? You know what I mean? So in order to deter the marauders from coming into your city, you cut the heads off of the previous group of marauders, you stick them on pikes, and then you line them up on the way into the city, right? So that the new marauders know what's going to await them should they dare to enter the city with ill intentions, right? So the heads on pikes letter.
So how was he trying to send like affiliate traffic? What was he just trying to, what was he doing?
He was just sending a letter to his email list. I don't remember the exact nature of the letter, but this guy like copied the whole thing.
And so at what point is a gray area? And I think we talked about this, because I was like, I will take in a bunch of different people's copy and I'll go over it, learn from it, and then we'll write something similar.
You can write something similar. Inspiration is fine. Copying is not fine, right? So sometimes people call me and they go, so-and-so copied my stuff. And I'll go, okay, let me see. So what so-and-so did was they copied the basic structure, like the intro does this, the next paragraph does that, and then the final paragraph goes into the conclusion and the offer, right? As long as you're not copying the words on the paper, it's inspiration and not copying, right? So if I want to write a book, or a screenplay about a guy who is kind of thought of being a little bit dumb as a kid, and then he goes and he serves in the military, and then he comes back and he starts a lucrative fishing business, right? Now that's kind of like the outline for the screenplay of Forrest Gump, right? The story of Forrest Gump, but it's not Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Right. Like I can have that same outline if I want to, but I better not make the characters the same, and I better not copy. Right. So there's inspiration and then there's copying. And, it's always on a case-by-case basis. Like I said earlier, it's always a sort of, it depends thing. These are guidelines, right? So when we know copying, when we see it, then we can say, yeah, that's probably a bridge too far, but there is no bright line test for copyright infringement. And there is no bright line test for trademark infringement, which is why these cases get litigated a lot, right?
Okay.
So, you look at it and you say, well, what really happened here? Did somebody use this for inspiration, or did they swipe the whole darn thing, change 3 words, and immediately send it out to their list, right? I mean, if it goes out 10 minutes later, it's probably more likely to be copying than inspiration, right? Because inspiration, writing from inspiration takes time. It takes thought. It takes effort. Swiping and copying does not. Excuse me, my nose is running.
Oh, no problem. So if you see me like looking over, I'm writing down more questions.
Okay.
How long does litigation take generally with some of these things?
Gosh, it really depends. I only litigate at the trademark trial and appeal board. Those are pretty lengthy. It can take a couple years to resolve something. So, anytime there's a trademark controversy that can be, resolved at the trademark trial and appeal board level, I tell my clients, listen, it's going to take a couple of years to resolve this. So, maybe we just try to work it out with the other side, because they don't want to litigate.
How many clients don't listen? How many clients just like really want to get stabbed for 2 years?
You know, hardly any, but sometimes you don't really have a choice, right? If the other
Okay.
side won't bend and they just want to be, stubborn, then we just have to go in and bludgeon them, right? Or sometimes we'll file the the opposition document, and we'll say, okay, here we go. And then they'll default. They won't answer. So then we win.
How long do they have to usually answer?
It's, oh gosh, I think it's 30 days. I have to go look at the rules. I only look at the rules when I need them, right?
Yeah.
But usually you've got 30 days to respond. And sometimes those times can be extended. But yeah, there are time limits. And if you don't respond, then the other party wins by default. So.
Okay. How important would you think as an influencer would it be to trademark your Instagram handle?
Well, depends. Do you want to constantly play whack-a-mole with infringers? Do you want it to make it more easy to confront your infringers? I mean, it's really hard to do that without a trademark registration. So, if you've got an Instagram handle that you like and value, you should probably register that as a trademark.
Okay.
It's going to make enforcement of that a lot easier. When you don't have a trademark, you don't have anything to back up, right? So all you can say is sort of a wimpy, hey, I was using that first. And what's that? That's nothing. When you have a registered trademark, you can say, I'm the owner of this registered trademark, and you better stop, because if you don't, I'm going to sue you. And if you keep going, I'm going to sue you for triple damages plus attorney's fees. There's a lot of monetary risk for an infringer. So.
Okay. So my Instagram name is Strat Daddy.
Okay. You could register that as a trademark.
Right. And
probably find something.
Right. Possibly might. But then it does, when it comes to URLs, it doesn't matter if that person owns the URL, they own the URL and you have to buy it from them. Yeah.
If somebody else owns the URL and you get the registered trademark for it, you don't have the right, just because you now own the trademark, to steal their URL from them. Now, if you get the trademark and then somebody goes to grab the URL, then we can make a case for that, right?
Has that ever happened?
Yeah, it's happened. Like, people will try to register things like, Coca-Cola.video or something like that when the new top level domains come out, and Coca-Cola's like, nope, sorry, unidirection. We're going to take that from you. So, I mean, and word gets around pretty quickly, and they don't have to pay you anything for it either. They can just take it.
Really? And they can just be like, all right, yeah, no, you're gone.
I mean, we might offer you something just because it's easier than the litigation. But, if you're thinking that Coca-Cola is going to offer you $100,000 for that, no, they'll just say, I mean, if I was Coca-Cola's attorney, I would just say, no, we're not offering you anything. We're just going to litigate and take it from you.
Yeah. We'll
no, I mean, we don't have to bleed you to death. We'll just file it. And when you don't answer because you're broke, right? That's why you're scamming. You're scamming because you're broke. When you don't answer, we'll just say, okay, great. Now we win. Thank you. Bye-bye. You get nothing. And they get nothing.
Yeah.
And I have threatened people with that too. Basically, we'll buy it from you for what you paid for it. Prove what you paid for it. You paid $200. Great. We'll pay you $200. You can either accept it, or we'll file a uniform domain rights complaint, and we will take it from you, and you will get nothing. And it will cost us more, but we don't care.
I like you.
No, I'm not even playing games with these stupid scammers. I won't do it, because once you give in to one, what happens is word gets around, because all the scammers hang out together, right? Birds of a feather. So then it just creates more problems, right? Whereas if they learn that, nope, Coca-Cola doesn't play, Chanel doesn't play. If you get a Chanel domain, they will not pay you for it. They'll just steal it from you.
Really?
Yep. And we can do that.
So I was listening to a podcast the other day, and this dude made millions of dollars off of, let's say, fudged keyword URL traffic.
Fudged?
Yes, like let's say it's stratdaddy.com, but it's only with
Mhm.
one Y instead of two Ys. And
That would work.
he ran a bunch of traffic to it. This is before the algorithms changed.
Okay.
And he made a ton of money doing that. Could anybody take any action if someone would say someone did that?
If I'm Coca-Cola and somebody's putting Coca-Cola with two A's, I'm just going to go take their domain.
Okay.
I mean,
Just keep
so
taking
that's one of those situations where, since I don't know who he's up against.
Yeah.
Like if it were Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola would just take it. If it were one of my clients, I wouldn't give you any money. We would just go in and take it.
Okay. Awesome. So what should people mainly trademark? Like, so it's a bunch of entrepreneurs who listen to this primarily. So what
Yeah.
should they think about trademarking besides their company name? And should they even trademark their company name? Because some companies aren't, let's say, branded that strong, in my opinion.
Right. So just because you have a company name doesn't necessarily mean that you should register that as a trademark. There are a lot of company names that are not like forward facing, right? Like think about Colgate Palmolive. You don't have Colgate Palmolive toothpaste, right? Like I think Colgate Palmolive owns Crest. So there's like an umbrella brand, right? Colgate Palmolive, which they probably do have registered as a trademark. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but there's no such thing as Colgate Palmolive anything. There's Colgate toothpaste, there's Crest toothpaste, there's Palmolive dish soap, there's Tide detergent. At this point, I kind of forget who owns who, right? But what I'm saying is there are a bunch of consumer products brands. I'm going to turn on my light. It's getting dark. Here we go. That's better. So there are a bunch of consumer products, sort of like brand companies, these huge conglomerates that have brands that are registered as trademarks that aren't necessarily the same word as the company itself, like Colgate Palmolive, right? So what I recommend is if you are using a brand name to sell something, register that as a trademark. It doesn't matter if it's the same name as your company name, right? Like my company name is Angela V. Langlotz, a professional corporation. My brand is Trademark Doctor. Okay, so
Okay.
you don't necessarily have to register, and in fact, you can't register a trademark for a word that you're not using or a term that you're not using to offer goods and services to the consuming public. So if you're not offering, goods or services under company name, you actually can't register that as a trademark because you're not using it as a trademark. You have
So
to be
you
able
can't
to
just think of it like a URL, like how everybody will go up and like, hey, that's a good URL. I'm gonna go buy that. You can't just, hey, that's a good name. I should probably go trademark that.
You can, but eventually you're going to have to show use of that trademark on something.
Okay.
Right. So you can register it. It's a free country. You can apply, but at some point in the trademark process, you are going to have to show the trademark office that you are using that term in conjunction with the offer for sale or the sale of some goods and services to some consumer, someplace, somewhere. Okay. You can't just say there's no such thing as squatting on trademark rights in trademark land. Like you can't do that. At some point, in order to acquire the trademark rights, you are going to have to show use of the trademark in commerce, right? Like somebody asked me, can I get a trademark for spite? Right? kind of reminds me of one of those Seinfeld episodes. Why does Jerry want to return this item? For spite, he says. And the clerk says, you can't return an item for spite. And he's like, what do you mean I can't return it for, anyway, so you can't get a trademark purely out of spite. You have to, at some point, use it. Right. Okay. So remember, so people forget why we have trademarks in the first place. People think, oh, trademarks are for trademark owners. No, that is not why we have trademarks. We have trademarks to enable the consumer to distinguish between different goods and services in the marketplace. Remember, trademarks came about because they're basically like a maker's mark, right? So somebody in the olden days created a something, right? Like a silversmith. He had a silversmith and he had his maker's mark that he stamped on it and said, this is from so-and-so silversmith. Well, those sorts of maker's marks are trade marks, right? They enabled consumers to distinguish between his silversmithing and someone else's silversmithing, or this pottery maker and this other pottery maker. So people use trademarks to distinguish between different goods and services. Like if I told you, Stratton, that when I go shoe shopping, I never want to buy the swoosh shoes. I only buy the 3 stripy shoes because the swoosh shoes are too wide in the heel. And so my heel moves around and I get blisters. And the 3 stripy shoes have a narrower heel that fits me better. Now, you know what shoes, what brands I'm talking about without me even saying anything, because we as consumers know what the swoosh is and what the 3 stripy is, right? I don't even have to tell you. But that's an example of how consumers use brands to distinguish certain qualities of the goods and services just by looking at the brand, right? Like the Nikes, those don't fit me, the heel's too wide, so I always buy the Adidas because they fit me better. That's it, right? So that's why we have trademarks. So to circle back, this is a really long segue. So to circle back, if you're not using a trademark in commerce to sell things, you don't have any reason to have a trademark if you're not selling things, right? So if you're not using the trademark to sell things, there's no reason for you to have a trademark, thus no right for you to use the trademark.
Okay. That makes a lot of, I didn't even know that. That's why I wanted to talk to you, because I wanted to learn all about this stuff.
But doesn't it make sense?
Yeah.
When you think about it that way, it makes a lot more sense and you can go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then when you start thinking about it that way, a lot of the rules that we have about trademarks, like the fact that you have to show use in commerce before you actually get the trademark registration, those sorts of things start to make more sense.
Okay. All right. Second craziest story. I love hearing these stories.
Second craziest story. That was a copyright story. Do I have a trademark story? There's always wackadoodle stuff going on. I don't really have any crazy trademark stories that I can tell right off the top of my head.
Okay.
I mean, the copying, that's always a lot more entertaining, because it's just like so blatant and it's
Blatant.
so
Yeah, it's like blatant.
right? Oh, here's a crazy trademark story. So this guy calls up my client and he says, so this guy he applied to register the trademark Portland SEO. Okay, so he applies for the trademark and then he calls up my client who does SEO in Portland. And he says to my client, you can't use the words Portland SEO. I have it trademarked, right? So my client calls me and he's like, what the heck? And so I looked it up and this guy, this knucklehead, had actually applied to register. He didn't hire an attorney, right? So he like totally screwed it up. So he applied to register the trademark Portland SEO for SEO services in Portland, Oregon, right? And so he was like, this is it, man. I'm going to be able to make it so that nobody else in Portland can use the words Portland SEO. And I'm like, not so fast, not so fast. So there's a rule in trademark law that you cannot register marks that are generic or merely descriptive. I mean, you can,
that's
but there's
super generic.
Well, generic and descriptive are 2 different things. You can register them, but there's extraordinary proof that needs to happen before you're able to get a trademark registration for terms that are merely descriptive. So Portland is merely descriptive for the geographic area that is Portland, and SEO is merely descriptive for search engine optimization services, also commonly known as SEO. So his entire mark is descriptive, right? And he's trying to use that to make it so that other people who also do SEO in Portland can't say that they do SEO. And so I wrote him back and I said, listen, you cannot get a trademark that prevents other people from fairly describing their goods and services. So if he had like something else plus Portland SEO, you know, bulletproof Portland SEO or something, you know, that would be one thing. We would still, though, he would still be required to disclaim the exclusive right to use whatever descriptive terms are in the trademark, so that he wouldn't be able to prevent other people from using those descriptive terms, right? But he would be able to prevent them from using bulletproof Portland SEO, but not Portland SEO, right? So I wrote him back and I told him that, and then I had a good laugh when the trademark office rejected his trademark application. So he spent the time and the money to apply to register this, but wasn't able to get the registration because, you know, had he actually called a competent trademark attorney, they would have told him, you're not going to be able to register this because it's not registerable, right? So yeah, those are kind of crazy stories. So again, trademarks don't exist to prevent people from fairly describing their goods and services. They exist to allow consumers to distinguish between goods and services X and goods and services Y. And if your brand is Portland SEO and other people are also doing SEO in Portland, the term Portland SEO is not going to enable the consumer to distinguish between your Portland SEO and this other Portland SEO, if you follow.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's kind of a crazy trademark story. But there are so many myths that people have about trademark law. One of my favorites is, oh, you can't register common words. It's like, yeah, you absolutely can register common words, but it depends on what they're for. Like
Define
Apple,
a common word. Okay.
like Apple, people will say, oh, you can't register Apple. And I'm like, well, it's registered. It's registered for computer services. Now you can't register Apple for apples, right? So if you're an apple cart guy and you're selling apples on the side of the street, you're right. You can't register the word Apple for your Apple selling services. But if you make computers and phones, you can absolutely register Apple for those things. Why? Because Apple is not descriptive of your goods and services. It's what we call an arbitrary trademark. We have taken the word Apple and we have just decided to use it as a brand. Same thing for Orange, right? Orange is a brand of amplifiers. We can use it for amplifiers, but we cannot use it to sell oranges, okay? Or anything orange, right? So if you had Orange Pop, and you wanted to call it orange, that's not going to work. If you want to call it Orange Crush, fine, right? Because that's now sort of arbitrary. We're calling it Orange Crush. What's another example?
So it would only work really for the SEO guys. So it's like, okay, well, what if you just get massive and you have a bunch of people trying to rip you off, right? Let's say the Portland SEO guy got nationwide and he was like, I just don't want people using my name. But it would be easier if you just had bulletproof Portland SEO, even if you were $1 billion company.
Okay, so let's say that you're a bazillion-dollar company and you have nationwide recognition. Then we would say that your descriptive trademark has acquired secondary meaning. What that means is
like
that
it's its own thing.
Right. We would say it's acquired secondary meaning, meaning that when everybody sees Portland SEO, oh my gosh, they know exactly who you are. It's that big, huge conglomerate, right? So if the mark, despite its descriptive nature, acquires secondary meaning, then it can be used as a trademark. But recall the reason that we have trademarks, right? To distinguish goods and services. So your trademark has become so well known that now everybody knows about you and your goods or you and your services. And if that's the case, then we can say, that you deserve a trademark registration because everybody knows about your mark and it's become distinctive. Even though it's descriptive, it's become distinctive for your goods and services through your continued exclusive and sort of notorious use of the trademark over a period of years. You have gained that sort of recognition. So yes, there are ways that trademarks that are descriptive can become registrable. There's a company in Portland. I was born in Portland. There's a company in Portland and they make whisks. And the company is called Best Whisk. Now, best and things like, best and supreme and premium and all of that, those are considered merely laudatory, which is kind of a subset of merely descriptive, right? In other words, it doesn't really say anything distinctive about the goods or services, but it's just like, oh, these are the best whisks, these are supreme. And doesn't everybody have the right to say that they make the best whisks, if that's, if that's what they want to say? Sure, they do. So things that are merely laudatory are also, it's hard to register those as a trademark because they're not distinctive. Well, again, if you use that trademark exclusively over time, even a descriptor like best can become so well known in the marketplace that people in your industry know. Like if you say, oh, who's Best Whisk? Oh, they're this whisk company in Portland and they make really great whisks. They really do make the best whisks. Anyway, but yeah, they got a trademark for Best Whisks because over the years, people came to associate that name with their brand of whisks. So I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm saying there are extra measures, extra proof, extra things that you
really market that thing and it has to grow.
Right. And you have to enforce your exclusive right to use it. Like if 3 other companies came along and also started calling themselves Best Whisk, then if you're Best Whisk, you wouldn't be able to say, well, everybody recognizes my company as Best Whisk. And it's like, well, dude, there are 3 other companies out there using Best Whisk. We don't know who's who. So no, we're not giving you a trademark. Right. So, it has to be exclusive use, right? Because remember, it's a source identifier. We're using that name or that symbol to identify your company, not your company and Bob's company and Jane's company and, Michael's company, your company. So you have to exclusively use it, but it's hard to enforce your exclusive right to a trademark when you don't have a registration, right? So, you're going to have to do a lot of saber battling and intimidation on that one.
So the company Supreme, right? That's the first thing that came to my mind.
Okay. Supreme. They make the tennis shoes, right? Is that what you're talking about?
So legitimately, all Supreme is they're a apparel brand.
Uh-huh.
And pretty much all they do, like they sell bricks for $1,000 just with their logo on it that says Supreme in red.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Right. But it's taken a very, very long time. And I guess I have the trademark because it's like a luxury brand.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just the word Supreme, where it's
Right.
like honestly some of the best marketing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Because all they do is just stick a fucking sticker on something and then sell it for ungodly amounts of money.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I forget which designer it was, but they had a trash bag. They had their models. Balenciaga, yes. They had their models walking down the runway with trash bags, and they were selling the trash bags for $2,000.
Yep.
They were trash bags with Balenciaga, but Balenciaga branded trash bags. Yeah. And it just goes to show you that people will buy anything if it's marketed correctly, right?
Exactly.
Like you can literally convince people to spend 4 figures on a plastic trash bag if it is branded and marketed correctly. That's pretty extraordinary when you think about it.
I think what designer brands have done as far as marketing is insane. Like if you like
Yeah.
truly think about it,
Mhm.
like their margins are huge because like it doesn't cost anymore to make it. Even
No.
if you're making like a cashmere sweater and you're selling it for $5,000, like that's still some pretty solid margins if you ask me.
Yeah. Yeah. It is extraordinary, the positioning, right? And
Yeah.
this is why they are so, you know, on the one hand, there's so much fake merchandise that's being
Yep.
imported. Okay. So there's that. And on the other hand, they are so quick to jump on anyone who even
Oh,
nibbles around the edges of their brand. Like one of my clients, I won't say who, we got into some discussions with Chanel. And I mean, to their credit, Chanel was not unreasonable about it at all. They just wanted assurances that my client wasn't intending to nibble around the edges of their brand. And she really wasn't. Her stuff was really different. But you know, they're very careful about those sorts of things because they have literally billions of dollars at stake with their brands. And, you know, I'm really surprised that some of these brands are not more aggressive about going after counterfeiters. I mean,
yeah.
it's like whack-a-mole. I know that, but really, I mean, I wouldn't buy Louis Vuitton because Louis Vuitton their brand has been so cheapened by knockoffs that my concern would be that if I buy Louis Vuitton, someone's going to think that I bought a fake, right?
Yep.
I mean, they're really, really harming their brands by not policing them more carefully. One of the things that you get to do as a trademark owner is you can work with US Customs and Border Patrol to basically have counterfeit goods seized at the border if they're discovered. So what you can do is, as the trademark owner, you can say to Customs and Border Patrol, hey, if you find any of our stuff and it doesn't come from this address in Italy, seize it and destroy it. And they will do that. The problem is that they don't inspect everything that comes into the country. They can't. There's like, you know,
Oh yeah, it's impossible.
millions of containers coming in every year with millions of boxes in those millions of containers. It's impossible to inspect everything. And I think that's why so much of it gets in. But it really represents a problem for these luxury brands. I mean, Reddit has all kinds of subreddits that, you know, are offering you know, luxury goods, fake luxury goods, of course, from Chinese factories. And some of them, and most of the fakes are terrible, but some of them look really good, you know, and you wouldn't be able to tell. So, you know, you can have somebody in China manufacture a fake Kelly bag, right, for $200. Whereas if you went into Hermes and wanted to buy it, it would be, you know, $7,000. So, I mean, it represents, and probably that person who's buying the fake wouldn't be going into Hermes anyway and getting a Kelly bag. But if you allow people to knock off your bags, it means that consumers like me, luxury good consumers like me, will go, I'm not buying that because I don't want people to think I have a fake, you know? So Louis Vuitton has certainly been knocked off a bunch. Balenciaga gets knocked off a fair amount. Gucci too. So there's a lot of fakes out there.
All right. Last couple questions.
Okay.
Burberry's pattern.
The plaid.
How would that? Yeah, the plaid. Could they trademark that or copyright it?
Yeah, they have it trademarked. I don't know if they have it copyrighted or not. So
because it's
here's
a
the
pattern.
thing about, sorry?
It's just a pattern.
It is a pattern. So let's talk about sort of the conceptually what you can register a copyright for. So remember that copyright is for protecting creative expression. So there is a minimum threshold of creativity that has to be met before the trade or the Copyright Office rather will consider your copyright application. If your creative work is not sufficiently creative the Copyright Office will refuse to register it. Okay, so remember, it's for creative work. Can clothing patterns be creative? Yeah, they can be creative. How creative does it have to be creative? Is the Burberry plaid creative enough? I don't know, because plaids are pretty common, right?
That's what I'm saying.
So every Scottish clan has their plaid, right? So the answer is, I don't know. I could see arguments for both sides. I'm kind of leaning towards probably not creative enough, but the argument could be made, Trademark is different. We don't have to prove creativity when we are registering a trademark. The only thing that we have to prove is that it's distinctive. Okay, and the Burberry plaid is registered as a trademark for their distinctive plaid design. In fact, I did a video about this a few years ago. Target tried to knock off the Burberry plaid, and they were sued by Burberry for that. So,
okay,
these sorts of things happen. But yes, the Burberry plaid is registered as the trademark. Is it knocked off constantly? Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. One of those things that, again, they are, by failing either, deliberately or accidentally to address all of the fakes that are being made, they are diminishing the value of their brand, because nobody wants to wear it if it's being knocked off by fake manufacturers and worn by trashy people, right? Like there's this word I don't even know what the equivalent word would be in the United States. We might say it's white trashy, right? There's this word in Britain, and the word is chavvy, chavvy, and it's sort of like flashy, but also trashy, like kind of white trashy, but flashy, like nouveau riche kind of thing. It's one of those uniquely British
bougie
things,
would be
right?
a word for that.
Bougie is not trashy though. Like this is like nouveau riche and trashy.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's chavvy, right? So Burberry has kind of lost a little bit of its luster in Britain because it's worn by the chavs, right? Sort of the flashy, white, trashy youngsters who, maybe they're wearing knockoffs, we don't know. But so it's causing people to kind of go, I don't really want to be associated with that, so I'm not going to wear something that's obvious Burberry plaid. But these people are like head to toe Burberry plaid, right? Which looks kind of stupid anyway. But that's another example of how, when you don't adequately police your brand, I mean, there's nothing you can do about trashy people going into Burberry and buying your stuff and then wearing it head to toe. That's one thing, but at least you're making money off of that, right? But if people are not, buying the knockoffs, and the knockoffs look crappy, and the people wearing your stuff look trashy, it's harmful to your brand, right? And you're not making any money off of it, so you don't want that. But what else? Oh, Burberry, yeah. So the Burberry plaid is actually a registered trademark. Louboutin, the red soles, that's actually registered as a trademark as well, but it's only registered as a trademark if the red sole is contrasting. This was actually litigated, and Louboutin sued another manufacturer. I forget which one, but the other manufacturer had a shoe that was entirely red and a red sole as well. Louboutin said, no, you can't use the red sole because that's our trademark. Well, the court said you can use the red sole if the rest of the shoe is red, and what you're trying to do is, make an entirely red shoe. If the red sole is contrasting, that's a trademark owned by Louboutin. You can't do that.
That's a powerful trademark.
It's a very powerful trademark.
That's a powerful trademark.
It is one of the most recognizable trademarks. And literally, when you walk around, people can see your Louboutin red soles, right? In fact, the rubber soles that you put on the shoe to protect the leather bottom, like when it rains or whatever, you don't want the bottoms of your shoes to get wet. It's kind of yucky. So, and it makes them slick too on certain surfaces. So cobblers have started offering the red bottom rubber that matches the red of the Louboutin so that you can go get your Louboutins half soled and still have the red shoe. Pretty clever, huh?
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how much people love their red bottoms. On shoes.
On shoes. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming on. I don't want to take too much of your time. Where can
Oh,
people
no,
find
it's
out
fine.
more
This has
about
been
you?
fun. Sorry?
Where can people find out more about you? Instagram, YouTube?
Oh yeah, you can find me online at trademarkdoctor.net. If you go to YouTube and you search Trademark Doctor, you'll find me. I've got like 400, actually no, more than 500 videos now about trademark law. You can find me, I'm on Instagram, Trademark Doc. I got Trademark Doctor too, but I got locked out of that account. Anyway, what else? I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on TikTok. Where else am I? I'm kind of everywhere, but my favorite place to hang out is Facebook. So you can, if you search Trademark Doctor, you can find me on Facebook too. So
awesome. And best way to reach you and not just find you?
Messenger. Either
Okay.
email to angela@trademarkdoctor.net, or you can message me on Facebook. I'm Angela Langlots. So if you just go to Trademark Doctor on Facebook, you know, /Trademark Doctor, you can message me there too. So
awesome. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you soon.
okay, thank you.
Yep.